Hello, Anna. Thank you for joining us with Conversations with MM today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Conversations with MM. This is Marivir Montebon once again here in New York City. So tonight, our conversation is going to be about immigration, which is very hot these days, very controversial and fearful for many here in the U.S. So my featured guests are immigration lawyers, attorney Michael Gurfinkel and attorney Licelle Cobrador. Now, we had a very extensive conversation with attorney Gurfinkel recently, last Tuesday, just the day after the inauguration of President Trump, because of the gravity of the topic on immigration and how things have to be dealt with these days as far as your immigration rights are concerned. So in our conversation with the PhilAm Press Club of New York officials and friends, my media colleagues, let me show you the picture, our picture. I'm so glad that we had this conversation recently, and also in the presence of Consul General in New York, the Honorable Sinin Mangalili. He was with us at the New York office of Attorney Gurfinkel. So we had a very in-depth conversation, and in fact, we created two sessions for his podcast, and because it is not enough to have one conversation only when it comes to immigration. So there you go. So extensively, we were talking about this birthright amendment. Now, what is this birthright citizenship? It is enhanced in the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. It plainly just means that when you are born here in the U.S., whether it's the mainland or the territories of the U.S., you are a U.S. citizen. But then President Trump has interpreted it differently. He wants to change it. And the interpretation is that if your parents or your mom is undocumented, you cannot be a U.S. citizen. So now this has created a lot of conversation and, in fact, legal action, because about 22 states have filed a case against the implementation of this executive order, which was signed by President Trump immediately after his inauguration. So if this will not be stopped, the EO takes effect on February 16, 2025, supposedly. But then already there are two federal judges who have opposed this EO, and has ordered for a temporary stop or a temporary restraining order. The judge in Seattle and a judge in Los Angeles, Judge Coffinower of Seattle and Judge Ho of Los Angeles. So the case will be handled by the Supreme Court, and we are going to see a lot of arguments back and forth in defense of birthright citizenship. And so attorney Michael Gurfinkel has a very succinct explanation as to what this means and what could be done. So let's take a listen.
Welcome to U.S. Immigration TV. If you have a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, you likely know that even if you have a low interest rate, the bulk of your payments on that mortgage go straight.
In this video, I will discuss whether Trump can end birthright citizenship for your children born in the US. Well, on his first day in office, Trump signed dozens of executive orders, including one entitled Protecting the Meaning and Value of American Citizenship, where he effectively attempts to reinterpret the US Constitution and deny citizenship to certain children born in the US, which is referred to as birthright citizenship. Well, what is birthright citizenship? Who could be affected by this executive order? Is it retroactive? And I know there are many parents right now in the US waiting for their US-born children to turn 21 to enable those children to petition them. So will this executive order affect the children and those parents? And is what Trump is attempting to do legal or constitutional? What are his chances of succeeding? Well, watch this video until the end for the answers. And don't forget, of course, to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more useful information. A little bit of background. The concept of birthright citizenship comes from the Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which states, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. Well, the issue of birthright citizenship is the meaning of that phrase, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, in the Constitution. And Trump's attempts to rely on that phrase to deny citizenship to certain people born in the US. Now, traditionally and historically, that phrase, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, was interpreted to exclude the children of diplomats from US citizenship. After all, diplomats have diplomatic immunity, and they are not typically subject to US jurisdiction. But now, Trump appears to want to extend that phrase by ending birthright citizenship to children, and here's the key to it, to children born of mothers who are unlawfully present or are on temporary non-immigrant visas, and the father is not a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident. So let me break that down. In other words, Trump believes that children who are born in the U.S. are not subject to the jurisdiction thereof and therefore not eligible for U.S. citizenship if, number one, the person's mother was unlawfully present in the U.S., such as being out of status, or the mother entered the U.S. without a visa, snuck across the border, and the father was not a United States citizen or lawful permanent resident green card holder at the time of the child's birth. Or number two, second concept where a person is not subject to the jurisdiction of the U.S. is when the person's mother was in the U.S. and in lawful but temporary status, such as the mother was on a temporary non-immigrant visa, such as a student visa, a working visa like H-1, etc., and the father was not a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident at the time of the child's birth. So if a person born in the U.S. fits into one of these two categories, then no governmental agency shall issue documents recognizing their U.S. citizenship according to that executive order. So this would effectively mean or include the State Department now refusing to issue U.S. passports to these American-born children. About retroactivity, that's a big concern for many of you out there. Will it apply to your children, or would it apply to, I guess, people decades ago? No, the executive order, according to its terms, will apply, and I quote, only to persons who are born within the United States after 30 days from the date of this order. So meaning it's not going to be retroactive. So it means people already born in the US will still be considered to be US citizens. You know, good for all of you who are waiting for your kids to turn 21 to petition you. It's just that under this executive order, children now in the future, after 30 days, born to mothers who are unlawfully present or who are on temporary non-immigrant visas will no longer be considered US citizens unless the father is a US citizen or green card holder. But what will the status of that child be if you have a case where the mother is out of status? Would the child also be out of status and therefore deportable, even though born in the US? Well, the question now is whether this executive order is legal or constitutional. In my opinion, it is not. First, how will this executive order be enforced or carried out? When a mother gives birth, she's going to have to declare her immigration status at the hospital? Well, the father is also going to be needed to be identified and his immigration status be checked out to make sure he is a US citizen or lawful permanent resident. I'm thinking that the government may also require DNA testing of the father to make sure that the person identified as the father truly is the father, in case the mother asks a US citizen or lawful permanent resident friend to pretend to be the father and list him on the birth certificate where the actual father may be tago na tago or out of status. Second, it looks like Trump is attempting to extend, interpret, or even amend the Constitution by executive order. But in our government, it is the job of the US Supreme Court to interpret the Constitution, including what the phrase "and subject to the jurisdiction thereof" actually means. And the US Supreme Court has already done that. In 1898, the US Supreme Court had already decided the issue of birthright citizenship in the case US versus Wong Kim Ark, Chinese case, in which the court held that a child born in the United States of parents of Chinese descent, it doesn't have to be Chinese, it could be Filipino descent, but the parents were foreigners, who at the time of the child's birth are subjects of the Emperor of China, but have a permanent domicile and residence in the United States and are carrying on business and are not employed in any diplomatic or official capacity under the Emperor of China, automatically became a US citizen at birth. So this case established an important precedent in interpreting the citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment of the US Constitution. And what I also don't understand is Trump was really getting angry, if you remember during his campaign, of what he called activist judges, judges who were going out and making new laws. He liked traditionalists, and that's when he was appointing Supreme Court nominees. He was saying that these nominees are conservative. They will stick to the letter of the Constitution and not attempt to legislate. But what is Trump himself doing with this executive order? He's being an activist president and interpreting the Constitution, reading things into it that are not actually there. Therefore, the issue or interpretation of this phrase "and subject to the jurisdiction thereof" was already decided over 125 years ago. So I don't quite understand how or why Trump can now issue an executive order effectively overruling the US Supreme Court. Now, I fully expect that lawsuits will soon be filed challenging this executive order. It's probably going to be by a mother who is in the US on a non-immigrant visa and gives birth in the US, as opposed to like an out-of-status mother. Ultimately, that case will probably wind its way up to the US Supreme Court, and they already have a precedent decision on this issue, interpreting that clause and holding that a child born in the US to non-citizen parents is a U.S. citizen at birth. I will continue following this executive order and its status, as well as the dozens of other executive orders signed by Trump, all affecting immigration. We're in for a roller coaster ride, believe me, with Trump, because he promised just to have a complete upheaval and revamping of our immigration enforcement. So please make sure to continue to watch this channel and, of course, like, share, and subscribe. I'm Michael Gurfinkel, and thank you for watching U.S. Immigration TV.
Okay, that was Attorney Michael Gurfinkel. That was very well explained, the birthright citizenship, and now that it is being imperiled by the executive order of President Trump. So as he spoke, that was like the day after the inauguration, and now we can see the pushback from the 22 states in the U.S. who are questioning it legally, the legal and constitutional soundness of that executive order. So I was just being appalled by the fact that how indeed does the government question a woman's the child citizenship when the woman just gave birth. Will she have to declare if she's a U.S. citizen and her husband as well, so that the child will be known to be a U.S. citizen as well? So that is like tearing apart and making everybody stressed unnecessarily for me. Okay, so our conversation with Attorney Gurfinkel, I guess, as I mentioned, was truly productive and deep. And we also tackled many issues on immigration, like the Filipinos, like massive deportation. How do we see that? How is that being carried out? It has to have actually a court order. A deportation has to have a court order, and it is going to be served to the person, and then he will have to be summoned in court, and then proceedings can take place. So in these cases, you need to have a lawyer. So it has always been stressed in our conversation that you need to know your basic rights. Everybody has rights. You have a right to due process, and make sure you have with you the telephone number of a lawyer when you are in need of one, okay, especially these days. So in conclusion to that conversation of ours at the office of Attorney Gurfinkel here in New York, he was one with us, or what, particularly when I brought up the idea that immigration reforms is the work of congressmen and women. It's not the substantial work, and cannot be by the executive branch or the president. They can only do certain stopgap measures to alleviate problems, to solve problems as far as immigration problems are concerned in the U.S. So I've been saying this time and again, that our immigration law, which is 59 years old, it was enacted in 1965, has not been remedied at all. It's so broken. And so it has to be Congress to do that. But then, politics here is crazy as well. Like, it's always an intramurals. They're not doing substantively what they're supposed to do. So that's why we have reached into this level of problem at the borders, for example, or what to do with overstaying visas and etc. It's human trafficking, labor trafficking. None of that has been effectively been addressed by Congress. So it's time for this congressmen and women to sit down and really fix the broken system of immigration and not scapegoat on immigrants. So with that, I'd like to share what um, Attorney Licelle Cobrador has got to say on immigration reforms. This was I was able to record this a few months ago here in New York City.
Immigration system is so broken. There are so many avenues which needs to be changed. The family-based immigration, employment-based immigration, like the H-1B, I'm sure you all know what the H-1B visa is, the work visa. It's a black hole. America needs a needs-based immigration system. We need to know our numbers. How many jobs do we need per industry? And how many humanitarian visas can we really accommodate? And if we don't know those numbers, we're just kind of throwing darts in the dark, which America has been doing for a long time. And I think we should galvanize everybody to be political, to talk to your officials, and like shake their core. You really need to reform immigration because this is us. This is what makes us the United States.
Okay. Yes, that was Attorney Licelle Cobrador explaining to us the need for immigration reforms, which is an act of Congress, so that problems on the brokenness of the H-1B visa, addressing DACA, for example, Dreamers, and addressing human trafficking, overstaying visas must be addressed because these unrepaired problems in the law is actually creating the burgeoning number of overstayed visas or people who just cross the borders and then will be detained and then left off again, have to be released for lack of charges, etc., and then they come back in whatever manner. So the problem becomes a vicious cycle. So please, congressmen and women, do something on the immigration reforms of the U.S. Okay, so this is really a big problem because immigration is the fabric of American society. Everybody is an immigrant except for the natives, the Native Americans who are all concentrated in reservation camps. All of us, we may be first generation, second generation, third generation. This is our problem, and we want society to be intact and productive. So let us all voice out and always get a critical mind, question what is going on, and so we can solve this problem altogether. In the meantime, as the lawyers would say, you should always be aware of your rights and always remember that everybody is entitled to due process. So get yourself a lawyer, put the cell phone number of your lawyer in your cell phone so that you will be able to contact whenever you need it, whenever necessary. Okay, so much for the immigration issues in this episode. I'd like to put in a kind of a refreshing event that's coming up. So here, this is a concert that's coming up in the month of March. We will kick off the month of March, Women's Month, with a concert, Women Defying Gravity. So this is brought to us by three nonprofits: the Women's Federation for World Peace International, the Women's Immigration and Communications Cafe, which is my nonprofit, and Women and Media. So these nonprofits are working together to put up this kickoff concert serenade in celebration of the 69th session of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. Our artists are balladeer TJ Castanares and pianist Hyowon Barlaan, as you will see in the poster. So this year is very important because it's the 30th anniversary of the 1995 Beijing Conference on Women's Empowerment. So in 1995, women's organizations and the women governments that are members of the United Nations nations crafted the empowerment agenda for women in Beijing. And so we look back 30 years later here in New York during the women's international meetings sessions. How have women become? How's the status of women? Have we defied poverty? Have we defied stereotypes? How's our work on climate change and poverty and inequalities and education and health? How are we? So this year is very important. So we want to kick off with a concert serenade with women leaders, and our artists are young male artists. So they will serenade us. So for only a donation of $100, and Zelle it through 347-776-6836, the concert will benefit Young Filipino Peace Ambassadors program and the Narratives of Truth podcast, which is being run by We Cafe and Conversations with Them and Women in Media. So your help will go a little longer. So we'd like to thank you. And so mark the date on March 1 at 2 p.m. We will announce where the venue would be. Okay, so again, our artists are balladeer TJ Castanares and pianist Hyowon Barlaan. So mark that date, huh? Empower women, empower yourselves and our community. So with that, I'd like to share with you balladeer TJ Castanares, who's going to sing us the song Defying Gravity. We will defy all our obstacles together.
Something has changed in you. Something is not the same. I'm through with playing by the rules of someone else's game. Too late for second guessing. Too late to go back to sleep. It's time to trust my instincts. Close my eyes and breathe. It's time to try defying gravity. I think I'll try defying gravity. You can't hold me down. I'm through accepting limits, 'cause someone says they're so. Some things I cannot change, but till I try, I'll never know. Too long I've been afraid of losing love, I guess I've lost. Well, if that's love, it comes at much too high a cost. I'd sooner fight defying gravity. Kiss me go far, I'm defying gravity, and you can't hold me down. So if you care to find me love to the western sky, as someone told me lately, everyone deserves the chance to fly. And if I'm flying so low, at least I'm flying free. To those so around me, take a message back from me. Tell them how I'm defying gravity. I'm flying high, defying gravity, and soon I'll match with every now. And nobody in all of us, no wizard that there is or was, is ever gonna bring me down. Bring me down. Everybody say it. very much for having me here.
Okay, that was TJ Castanares. He performed at Fiesta in America, Pasco in America, last year for the uh, Christmas festivities at the American Dream Mall. So remember to mark your date on March 1. There's going to be a concert with TJ Castanares and Hyowon Barlaan as pianist. And take note that this is for the benefit of the Young Filipino Peace Ambassadors Program and the Narratives of Truth podcast. We will announce to you where the concert will be very soon. But mark your date. This is for the empowerment of women and the empowerment of our community. Thank you so much. So that's it for our episode this evening. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Bye for now.